A group of us all went down to Brazil in January. When we first reached Brazil, we ended up attending a 2-day retreat. And this 2-day retreat happens after young people have already formulated their ideas and begun to fill out their action plan. So after the retreat, the young people finalize their action plans, and they're basically prepared for panel, which is very similar to what happens with a country representative preparing an Ashoka Fellow per panel, but obviously, on a much lesser scale. So the young people come. There are about 100 teams that go through a marathon panel over 3.5 days. They have 3 teams per room. There are 3 panelists, usually community members, Ashoka Fellows, business people, other youth who've already launched their ventures, sit down, and basically these young people have an opportunity to pitch their idea, their dream. This is the point in time in which they get their funding. We spent about 2 days sitting through panels, which was such a wonderful, wonderful experience. The young people are incredibly excited. This is the first time they've seen each other since the retreat. So, they're all sitting in on each other's panels to see, who got funding or who needs more work. You'll oftentimes find the kids sitting, outside the rooms in large circles playing guitar and singing with one another, just really supporting each other through this process. So there's definitely one story that stands out, and this was a story of a boy who looked younger than any other kid I'd seen go through the GMM program. He kind of sat in the back of the room with his mother, and it turns out that they had come from an area that was pretty far outside of Fortaleza and really spent a lot of time getting there via bus. They obviously were both very, very nervous. It came time for this young boy to present, and he looked incredibly nervous as he walked up to the front of the room. Olivia basically let us all know that his mother had come with him because his team member had dropped out 2 weeks ago. He was deliberating whether or not to move forward, but he really felt passionate about launching his venture. So he came with his mother and presented on his own and walked up very sheepishly and began presenting his idea. And basically what he wanted to do was bring street dance or break dance to young people to increase their confidence. And he was asking for, a TV and a VCR to show them different break dancing. And he decided to also, show us some of his break dancing. So he had some incredible moves. It was all over the floor, just doing things that really take a lot of strength and time to hone in. And then finally came the point after he'd presented for 10 minutes where the panelists began to question him. Just like panelists do within Ashoka, they started really, really digging in on specific components of what his venture idea was. He did a great job of standing up to them and seeming very confident. And then all of a sudden, after about question 4, he just looked down and completely broke down and started crying. 3 women in the room immediately got up. His mother was crying in the corner and hugged him and brought him outside and helped calm him down. And so really spent some time with him. And after about 5 to 10 minutes, he opened the door and came back in. And the whole room began applauding for him. And he still had tears coming down his face. But Olivia let everyone know that he was going to be brave and that he really wanted to finish his presentation. The panelists began questioning him again, and as they questioned him, he really tried to control himself and began crying again. And one of the Ashoka Fellows, who actually had instigated his crying the first time, said, you shouldn't be ashamed of these tears, because I know that these are tears of pride. They're not shameful tears, and you should be, so proud of the fact that, you're doing this work and that you're trying to make a difference, and I know that you're going to be such a successful individual. So he ended up, finishing his presentation. So the time comes when they're announcing, who got their funds and who didn't. And Olivia's great at stringing this on so that, the kids are just dying in their seats to know whether or not they got funded. And Olivia finally broke down and said, and, you get your funding. And this little boy and his mom just both started crying, and he walked up to Olivia to get his certificate and just began absolutely bawling on her shoulder. He was just so elated, and It worked out very nicely because he didn't have a support system for moving forward, and one of our Ashoka fellows, Johnson, runs an organization that's really a hip-hop movement across Brazil, and so they kind of took him under their wing, and this little boy came back every single other day of the panel and just became very integrated in the program moving forward. I think that what this story really showed each of us who were, all in the room is how deeply the youth venture experience really hits these young people. It's a very profound thing where there is a switch where all of a sudden they see themselves as powerful individuals who can achieve their dreams. For many of these kids, this is the first time that they've ever been able to achieve something of this scale in their entire life. This experience is life-changing, and it is an experience that every young person should really, really have.